Welcome to Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price, Marki, back here in the who are you waving at? In the studio. There's no video, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. It's a lot of stuff happening in here that probably for better nobody gets to see. But more importantly, we'll get to that later. We were just talking about the Virginia Film Festival, though, which is coming up. Do you want to put in your little plug for that? Do you have a plug for that?
Yeah, sure. United Way is sponsoring one of the films, Piano Lesson, which is based off the play by August Wilson in the Wilson Cycle, which is a 10-round set of plays about the African American experience over 100 years in the Americas. So please come out, buy your ticket. It's going to be an amazing film and an amazing cast. Erykah Badu's in it.
Oh, word?
Wow.
Badu.
And this is first week in November, I want to say?
Yeah, the film will be playing now November 1st.
November 1st. That's coming up. What day is it? Yeah,
It's
about a month away.
Yeah, a month away.
So you can get your tickets at virginiafilmfestival.org. A lot of great sponsors, a lot of great community organizations. We will talk about more of that. And speaking of community organizations, Kisha Bwenge here with us from CACF and various other... Oh, you're doing a whole bunch of stuff. You're all over the place.
We're trying.
Well, thank you for carving out some time for us.
Happy to be here.
So talk a little bit about give us a little bit about you. So talk a little bit about where you're from, how you made it here, and then we will chart the path as such.
Well, I have had a very full circle journey in my return to Charlottesville. My family's from Tanzania. I was born there. And when I was about a year and a half, we came to the U.S. and we came to Charlottesville. So
Straight to Charlottesville.
Is that
my
dad was doing his PhD at UVA.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we were here while he was in the program. I was here till I was like 8. I went to Greer. Shout out. When moved around after that, my dad had a postdoc in New Jersey, so he lived in Princeton for a couple years, and then he went to University of Florida, where he spent the rest of his professional teaching career. Yeah, truly.
Yeah, you just got to get to Rhode Island? Get to Maine, and you're almost there. Yeah.
Too cold for us. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I mostly grew up in Florida. My adolescent years, sort of all of my middle and high school years. Then I went to Washington University in St. Louis for college. And then I moved to New York after that and spent my first half of my 20s living it up in the city girls. And then, COVID hit, moved around a bit, went back home to Florida, spent a year in California, went back home to Florida.
You are really
some
not
miles
the COVID
on
part, but you're like living. You're doing the things that I
I'm tired now. I lived.
I've lived. I'm done. I'm out.
But no, it was fun. I pretty much got to live in every part of the country at some point.
Yeah.
And so I met my current partner in Florida. And then he got a postdoc at UVA. So
no kidding.
Following men
Wait,
around
really?
to UVA. Love him. Shout out Tony. But yeah, we're here now for 2 years, probably more.
Okay.
But his postdoc program is 2 years. He's at the adult neurology clinic.
Okay.
To UVA Health.
Wow.
This is when he got that postdoc and you were in Florida, were you like, this can't be?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, no, this is because it feels like deja vu,
truly
right?
crazy. And I still have family here. I have a cousin who moved to Charlottesville when my family was here.
Okay.
And she never left. And now, her kids are, her eldest daughter is a second year at UVA. They've had their whole community here. They've been here for the whole, 20 years I was gone. So I'm just, time, I don't know, didn't stop, but, it felt like things are just still here and preserved. And it's good to come back. But obviously a lot has changed, too.
Yeah, so after the 20 years away and you come back, what was the first thing, what is the difference, I guess?
Did you go to Buddha's?
Yeah, what are you talk about things that are preserved, things that are different. What's the first thing that you noticed about coming back after all that time?
The thing that was probably, I had visited my cousin a couple times, so I'd sort of seen Charlottesville since, but honestly, I left when I was 8, so I didn't remember much. I didn't remember downtown. I remembered Fashion Square kind of.
And they are tearing that down.
I was shocked when I got here, but it was still running.
Red Robin got hit by a brick. Yeah.
Holding on by a thread.
Yeah.
But I remembered I went back to the student housing. We lived in Copley Hill. And so, we lived in the grad student housing there. I went back. I saw it peach into
I lived in Copley too.
You did? Oh my God, maybe we knew each other. Maybe. I went back to a little playground, a little little creek in the middle, and like went back to the basketball courts. My sisters always like played in the summers, and it was a lovely walk. And I've just, every time people come and visit, I'm like, do you want to see where I grew up? And they're like, okay.
Sure.
You want to see this grad student housing complex? They're like, sure. Yeah. But no, it's really nice. And I remember like the lawn. I know when they used to do maybe they still do it, the Halloween, the trick-or-treating.
Halloween.
Yeah,
Sure,
I remember trick-or-treating there.
That's right.
So like, yeah, that's all been the same. Fridays at 5, I think, was also a thing when I was growing up here.
Oh, has it been that? Has that been going on that long?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, wow,
I might be making that up, but I think so.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Let's
do some searching.
That's
on
right. We have the
Google
technology.
has the answer.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look
I was going to talk a little bit about
the origins of Fridays After
all
5.
this when you were moving around. What were you doing in these places? Was it like, I know you talk a little bit about in your bio about some of the things that you did and the nonprofits you worked for. So tell us a little bit about that and how you got into nonprofit work and what's keeping you around.
It's such an interesting journey. I went into college being like, my mom works in international development. My dad works, he's a sociolinguist, and so his background is in like anthropology. And I went into college being like, I'm going to be so different. I'm going to be the first doctor in my family. Like, I loved biology class in high school. And then I took physics, and I was like, no, never mind.
Really? Physics was the one that did it?
I didn't like physics either.
I couldn't, it just didn't compute. And I had dropped physics in high school, and I was like, no, okay.
Wait, you have to take physics as on a pre-med track?
Yeah. It was like most people had done it in high school, so most people weren't taking it in college, but I hadn't done it in high school. And they're like, you have to do physics, chem.
So they're like, you want to do knee surgery,
bio,
you have to understand the velocity, the terminal velocity of this brick.
I was like, how does that help you?
Honestly, it might just be like a weed out situation.
Yeah.
But I like backed out like the Kool-Aid man. I was like, oh, never mind. Like,
did you also enter like the Kool-Aid man?
Yes, I came on the scene like, oh, yeah.
Right. And then slowly out you go.
So 2 weeks in, I was like, I take it back. And then I just, was taking courses that were interesting to me. And they happened to fall into the categories of international development and anthropology. So thanks, Mom and Dad.
Weird how that happens, right?
Weird how that happens.
Have you guys ever thought about that as you've gotten older? Like, and if you decide to do this, when you have kids, you'll certainly have those moments where you're like, oh, man. You just become
your parents.
A very close approximation of your parents.
Yeah.
Stop the tomfoolery.
And it's like, you know what I'm saying? But we do this with genetics where we're like, you look so much like your parents. And you're like, yeah, duh. Like, that's how it works.
It's in
but
there.
It's still weirdly surprising when like I'll do stuff and I'll be like, huh.
No, I happen to me every day. I'm like, shout out to Tawan and Mark. And I do something every day. I'm like,
yeah,
I did not just do that just like they would do it.
100%.
Yes, no,
100%.
I'm fully my parents' child, and I love it. They're some of the coolest people. But it was
good
just
when
so
they're
funny
cool,
that
right?
like as a teenager, I was like, I'm gonna break the mold,
Be my
and
own
I'm not gonna be
person.
like you. So
And
yeah,
here we are.
I ended up getting an international development degree, bachelor's at WashU, and a lot of that was intertwined with anthropology coursework. And so when I left college, I was like, I want to work in international development, a lot of which is sort of in the nonprofit sort of social benefits space. And I moved to New York to work for an education literacy sort of social emotional development nonprofit that was working, I think at the time, in about 30 countries. So I guess that was the through line of my work up until now, that I was doing a lot of different kinds of things, but it was always with organizations that were working, globally, and had partnerships globally to sort of execute on the work. So I spent my time in New York working in the nonprofit space there. When COVID hit, I got a fully remote job that was based out of DC, but that's how I was able to like go from New York to California to Florida to Virginia. So I had that job in 4 different states.
Gotcha.
Thank you, OCP.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It was an incredible amount of stability during obviously just a tumultuous time. So I'm really grateful for that. But I think I also, 4 years into fully remote work, I was like, I'm a people person. I feel so disconnected. I really wanted something that was at least hybrid or in person. And so when we came to Charlottesville and I knew we were going to be here at least 2 years, I was like, okay, let me just like see what's up. And I found the job description for the capacity building role at CACF and literally was like, what angel came down from heaven to write this for me? Like who, what? It felt like a calling. It was actually crazy. I was like, this is my next job. It's happening. And
You're
throughout
so
the entire, Thank you. Throughout the entire interview process too, I just like was affirming all of the things that I saw in the job listing and the thoughtfulness and the integrity and the care and the social justice leaning. And so, it's been a great. Oh my God, 8 months. I started in February.
Oh wow. You feel like you've been, I've only met you about 4 months, a couple times, but you feel like you've been in the role forever. I think some people just like get into a role.
She's
really
been here
do.
and then came back and then left and then came back and then left and then came back.
A puzzle piece and then it falls
it just
right
fits.
into place. You're like, oh, that belonged there.
Fridays After 5 is 36 years old, by the way.
It's older than me. Right?
It is 1 month younger than me. It was April of '88. I was a mere 1 month old.
That's so funny.
As Fridays After 5 is kicked
Fridays
off.
After 5. Wow, what a
so
what a
yeah,
tradition.
36th season completed on September 6th. Of
wow,
this year.
I love that.
So there you go.
Yeah, so little baby Kisha was, pulling up.
Yeah. Roll up
to the mall.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, so talk a little bit about talk a little bit about college. So what? Why? I mean, you obviously have, no secret to travel and moving, and obviously the kind of person that doesn't have. It I would say, anecdotally, would not have problems fitting into new environments. Right? That's not a barrier to entry for you, going somewhere new and forming community in new places. But why? I mean, why there? And why there? And of all the experiences you've had being in places that have what we would consider prestigious universities, right?
Yeah.
You're in Charlottesville, you're in Princeton, you're in Gaines.
I know, I'm a college town girly.
Yeah, and so, but you left that, you went somewhere else. And was it just that it fit? Was it I want a different thing? I mean, was it a reaction to you, as you said, in your sort of age of identity, being like, I'm just going to go do the weird thing. I'm not going to go to Princeton. I'm going to go to...
I know, my family was like, what is in the Midwest?
Yeah,
like, isn't it just, what are those little balls? What are those called?
Tumbleweeds. The tumbleweeds, yeah.
That's truly what people imagined.
I mean, once you get past Illinois, there's just sort of nothing.
Yeah.
And then you pick back up in Colorado.
It looks like the two coasts. In my head, the states are like the coasts, and then we smash them together. And I can't see anything in the middle.
I know. I'm very glad I went because I'm like, I also just, it opened, it opened me up to the Midwest. And I think I chose WashU, honestly, because one, they were like the first college to come do a presentation at my high school. And so I think it was like the first time I was like, college is cool, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so nice over there. I will say they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, which is like getting bigger and bigger as time goes. So it's sort of like, it's like a institution that's like wants to be the Ivy League of the Midwest, and I feel like feels like they have a lot to prove. And
we
I
should
think,
give it to them.
Right.
You got University of Chicago out there.
Yeah,
that would be the one that I think people would.
I sort of came at a perfect time when I think like they were putting a lot of effort into like the student experience and like into creating like really good housing options and food and like extracurriculars and counseling support and all of these things because they were trying to attract some of the whatever the top students across the country.
Yeah.
And so I had a great 4 years, honestly. But yeah, I think I went out there because, I was just kind of enthralled. I went on a visit and it just felt right. It felt like it was a bunch of smart and well-rounded people who weren't, like tearing each other down or like, you would just hear these stories from some of these Ivy Leagues of people like tearing out books from textbooks so other people couldn't get. I don't think that's actually true. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, somebody just made that up. But...
Like people getting swirlies in high school?
Right.
Well, here's what we do know. UVA's acceptance rate is about 20%.
Is it that high?
WashU's acceptance rate is 12%.
Oh. Okay.
They don't want you to come in.
But it came with, at the time, I think it's better now, but at the time we had, I think 5% of the student population was black.
5%?
5%.
Yeah, sure.
Right, okay.
And I was like,
that seems high. I mean, for a very low acceptance rate school in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I feel like UVA, what's UVA? 6 or something like that?
Yeah.
Dang.
And it's gone. It was
went
high.
down.
You know how everybody got like this Harlem Renaissance period where like lots, we letting in black people, right? And it got up to 10%.
Ooh, and everyone's like, ooh.
Yeah, it was like a a renaissance of Black students and Black excellence.
That's beautiful.
According to Data USA, the enrolled student population of the University of Virginia main campus is 6.9% Black African American.
And then it goes down. People are like, oh, we wanted to be representatives, and then it's like, now we care about the spirit. Our student experiences was hard. Like, the people behind us, like, we made a way, but like now these people who we made a way for are like, hold up, y'all did great opening the door, but we don't want to just be here to be here. We want to feel included. We want to feel belong, like we belong. Yes. And so then after that, the numbers started dropping exponentially. So
there's some dispute on that. Could be 9, but anyway, it's under 10.
Under 10. Okay, so maybe WashU was killing it.
How was the Black experience in the Midwest?
It was something.
Student experience
at WashU. Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation with some folks that, like, there obviously, there was a Black Student Association. There was also an African Student Association.
Those are getting cut out, so that's good that you
right.
Yeah, sure.
And it was great to have those communities, but I think because there were so few of us, it felt like we had to sort of, like, I don't know, maybe not minimize, but sort of like unify around a certain kind of Black identity, just to be able to get.
There's not enough of us to be
all like
disparate.
Different.
Yes, that's how it is. That's how it works.
I was just like, I think in some ways I was struggling with belonging still, and feeling like I grew up as an immigrant Black person. Like it was a journey, but in really beautiful ways. I think like. I did the Black Anthology play, and that was just wonderful and eye-opening. And that year, the play was called Post, and it was like this idea, what year was it? 2013 or something? Obama's president, all this stuff. Sure. And they're like, do we live in a post-racial society? Like, people were starting saying that, and we're like, I don't know about that. And we went through 25 years of history at WashU of racism, like, through the play. It was, like, healing. It was, like, visceral. It was, like, just gave me so much like information. It gave me relationships, like when you do a play, you're like hanging out with people. Were you an actor? I was an actor.
Okay. I love, I'm in the arts. I was in the arts in college too.
Okay.
Don't look at me. I know it.
I did Black theater at UVA.
Oh my God.
It was called the Black Monologues.
Black Anthology, Black Monologues.
Which was about.
Was it in February?
We.
No, we're so serious. Black Anthology was
we
always
used to
in
do
February.
it. No, it used to be in like April and May because of Black Alumni Weekend fell in. It fell on Ball falls every 2 years or every other year, and we used to push it to May because alumni would be alumni would be back.
That's so nice. And, I would love that as an alumni.
But yeah, the Black Monologues was essentially a anthology of this Black student experience at the university over the course of time, obviously, and. I wasn't an actor. I was in the writing. I was a writing director in my last year, but I got to write, so I was never out front. But it still was very powerful to write about our experience and very different experiences. I think was the best part.
Exactly.
So
no, it was amazing. I don't know. I haven't acted in anything since.
Yeah.
But when I did that play, I was like, wow, the stage is my home. But then I got on stage for the opening show. My mic was on. I just got so nervous. I looked at my, co-actress, whatever, co-lead, and I was like, I can't do this. And she was like, your mic is on.
Yeah. Like, that's a hot one there.
Fully on stage. But everyone I know, like, who came in the audience said, oh, we didn't hear it. And I was like, okay, maybe you're being nice. But I just panicked. I was like, actually, no. And she was like, yes.
Tough break, because
we have to do this.
We're doing this. This train has left the station.
Yeah.
Speaking of, if you are just joining us, In Motion and Vision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA, and City of Promise. Price, Marki, Kisha, the triumvirate of nonprofit folks here in the booth. Tell me a little bit about, and I've asked some other folks this. How do you, or what was your experience like? You mentioned it a little bit, delineating between, your Black identity as someone who was born in Africa, who grew up in America, who are both your parents Africans, right? So you have a different cultural model than American-born Black folks do. And not to say there's only one, but it's different, and I've mentioned this to some other people. We talked to Ziki about this. We talked to, from other parts of the continent who have then come here at various parts of their life.
Right.
And kind of tried to put that together. I mean, do you have any moments where you were like, what in the world? Or how has that been for you? And might even still be evolving.
Yeah, I think college, as for many people, was a really deep time for me. And so I think through, being part of ASA and BSA, being, I know I did a writing class my senior year, and I my like little anthology was called African/American, and it was sort of me trying to explore those like through like other readings and texts and also some of my own writing. My nephew was born literally like a couple of months within Michael Brown's murder, and I was in St. Louis when all of this happened.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, and so big wake up call, I guess,
Really?
like transformation for me. Like I think I did still see myself as, I don't know, different, separate, and yeah, again, I had a different cultural upbringing, but I think that was a moment where I really had to be like, people look at me and don't know that I'm an immigrant or from Africa. Like this whole system looks at me and sees me as everyone else, you know, my brothers and sisters, like we're just all in this together. And and having like my, you know, American born nephew and being like, this could happen to him. And I think I really came into my sort of critical consciousness a lot in college, through protest, and also through some of the academic stuff I was doing. I was in a Mellon Mays program, which was funding undergraduates to do graduate level research and trying to like diversify the professoriate. And so it was interesting too, like we had this feeling or idea of ourselves as like activists within academia, you know, we're trying to like do the subversive work and things like that. And I think I also, and that's the thing I'm definitely still sort of struggling or grappling with, is like that balance between like how much can you do within the inequitable
within the system
versus outside of it. And like, you know, I understand that all of it needs to happen. And I think that was a year where I was fully like seeing it in real time, like straddling those roles and like coming up against like being supported by a certain institution to be subversive, but then being like squashed by WashU, like our other institution, in being, you know, more around like protest and and trying, and you know, I mean, everything that happened this past year with the Gaza protests, WashU had a very similar response and brought in, you know, like state violence against students. So it really, I mean, I think things came together for me in college where I was like, I have and know and understand my identities, and also I can't separate myself from the Black American experience. I grew up here. This is all I know. Do you feel like
you have clarity now? Do you feel like you get it? Like if
I
you
do.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I had like an identity crisis growing up.
Well, yeah.
And now it's very settled. It's very,
you know, and I wonder, you know, your experience I think might be different given that you have an immigrant experience. I'm from a biracial family, right? And so having to figure that out, I have a similar story of like, what part of this do I do when, and how do I fit into sort of these things that often feel like, particularly when you're a teenager, they're in conflict. Right. And I think particularly, and I don't know if you felt this, but it seems like your path has been traced through, like your parents are clearly highly educated and motivated, and a lot of your stops were in highly academic, like were based on a highly academic and sort of some level of rigor. Yeah. Right. And then you went obviously to a university that was like that, and blah, blah, blah. And that always felt like, at least to me growing up, that was sort of the tipping point. It was like you either, you know, and for me, it was like you're either an athlete or a nerd. Right? And, you know, and it was like, how do you do both?
I was a nerd,
you know,
bro.
Yeah.
You know, in high school I did, but I was bad at all of them. So. Yeah.
You know, and how do you do both? And how do you do both? And this is obviously like a broad brush, but again, when we think about education as a priority, right, that has not always been a hallmark, particularly of young Black people, particularly Black men. But so how do you do that? And how do you live in that world where you want to be accepted by your peers, but you go, you know, you're also what's modeled for you, and for you was academics are a priority. Yes. Right? Which is not very cool when you're 14. You know? And so I mean, for both of you, I'm interested, like, how do you have any recollections of that? I mean, I think about that still to this day. Yeah. You know?
Well, you were an athlete. So were you also a nerd?
Yes.
I also was an athlete and also a nerd. I played
the banjo and the piano.
What sports did y'all do?
I played basketball. Oh. And I was in, what is the sports magazine they have here for
scrimmage play?
Yeah, I was in scrimmage play a couple times. So I was pretty good. And I was pretty good. And also,
are we pulling it up?
But I guess I was also a nerd. But something I always tell people about high school was like, I don't remember studying.
Right.
I don't remember learning. Like, I went to class. I remember being there. Right. But I have my type of memory learning. My type of learning is like, hear it once, got it. Right. So I didn't have to study. I went into the test and remember what the teacher was saying. Right. So I didn't spend much time having to do the learning nerd part. So I got to, have a good time. I had a lot of free time. But But yeah, I love to hear about you guys'
Average 13 and 11? What?
Yes, I was averaging a double-double. Call me Angel Reese, okay?
Wow.
I was like athlete of the month a couple times. I was a baller. And that
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at that.
From the city.
Let's go. Wow,
Price,
sorry, I
what
derailed
sports
that
do you
whole
do?
thing. I played basketball. I grew up playing basketball.
Okay.
I didn't grow to the height at which my pediatrician wanted me to. That self-selected that out. Played football for exactly one season. Got tackled by
I can imagine that.
Yeah. That's a wrap on that. I didn't even get hit hard. Like, I got hit, and I was just like, ooh, you know what? Don't love that. So
I tried rugby once, and I had the same experience. I was like, actually, can I break my leg so I don't have to play this game?
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely
play
not.
rugby so bad.
It was the camaraderie, the team was amazing, but as soon as it got to an actual game, I was like, again, Kool-Aid man, back up.
Yeah, no. Took one hit, and it was just like, ooh,
nah.
I'm going to pass on that. So, you play Guess Who, and then it was left. Soccer was left. It was like, okay, it fit my body type. It fit what I was good at. And, when you do have some sort of physical confrontation, if it's with someone that's more or less your size, right? You're not getting fallen on by someone who's 300 pounds.
Yeah.
That I'm not, my frame is not built for that.
Soccer worked out.
Yeah, soccer was great. It was perfect. And so I did that. But that was but then I was also like in wind ensemble and other stuff, So you have you traverse those worlds. But to your point, I think it was that there was certainly that era of the whole at an era where I think everybody's doing that. You have the added layers of the roadmap's not quite there.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a lot of, or at least at that. I mean, I will tell you that a lot of my sort of culture, as you called cultural consciousness, was in the, like, how I'm a little bit older than you guys. This is like 2003, 2004. So it was the era of like Pharrell and like NERD, and it was early Kanye West stuff. Right? And so so I was in that like pink polo generation.
Right.
But, like that was the first time we had seen black guys dressed like that. Because we grew up in the sort of the early, more traditional hip hop generation. Right? Nas, Jay-Z, young Lil Wayne, all that kind of stuff. And then it transitioned into this Lupe Fiasco, Kanye West, Pharrell. Okay. It was different. It was the styles changed. Everyone's clothes started to fit differently. I mean, I'm from the era where like Saint Lunatics were wearing stuff backwards, and we got and then it changes when you hit 12, 13, and you're going, oh,
right.
Maybe that's more my thing.
Right. Maybe
and so it was that was the model.
Yeah.
Going through high school for me, which is it's interesting to see how that works with younger kids if you start to understand about yourself, right? Because you're just looking for archetypes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, and so, okay, so you take that and you sort of figured this out, and then you have this era, this sort of zeitgeist of American history that's also very fraught and confusing layered on top of that.
Absolutely.
What is that? Is some of that what pushed you into where you are, or were you already headed there? Like, were you going there already, or are you now watching this going, you know what? Is all this getting cooked in real time?
Me. I wish I could say I was going there anyway. I probably would have gotten there at some point, but I think, doing Black Anthology, being in St. Louis, doing Ferguson, being in essentially an affirmative action program that was really helping me be surrounded by, other folks who were having similar struggles and, figuring out, what is the balance and who am I in this space and things like that. All of that really shaped, I think where I am today. And so a lot of my nonprofit work was looking at systems of inequity and really trying to dismantle them. And I think a much more nuanced framework of that now, but I think when I started, as many people do starting in the nonprofit world, you're like, I'm going to do good. I see that this is not fair and this is wrong. And this affects certain people more than others and people who look like me. So let me get into it,
So how are you? I would love to hear how you've taken all these experiences and moved them into your work, and how it affects the way you do your job and the organizations that you help and the way that you want to see these organizations be successful and thrive, and the biggest challenges to that based on your lived experience?
I would say that in the first few organizations I worked at, I think I was very critical. I think in a good way, as my boss. But like, again, I was like, yes, we're doing good. We're trying to like redirect resources to, marginalized communities. But within the organizations, there was the racism and the sexism and, the heteronormativity and all of these things like playing out. And I can't believe I'm going to say this on the radio, but like I left my first job and I wrote a 10-page letter to
10?
HR. 10.
This is crazy.
I know.
Double-spaced?
I don't remember. I think it was like 1.5 space. I was a 1.5 space girly. I used to love like, just a little room, but not too much.
That's like 5,000 words.
I wrote a 10-page letter about
that's a
everything
tome.
I
That's
saw
a
and
chapter.
felt. Yeah, truly. And honestly, I kind of did the same thing when I left like another job. Like I don't know. And even before,
it's probably because you believe in feedback.
Right? I do.
You talk about feedback, equity and feedback, fellow. I
was like, y'all didn't ask for it, but
constructive criticism is the thing pushing us forward.
Have you compared them? Do they read similarly? Have you ever looked at them side by side?
I actually no. I think I have, and the second one is like way better.
Really?
I just had more to say. I had more understanding. I had more nuance. I think the first one I was just like, here are the things you said that made me uncomfortable. I think they were racist.
Right.
And then the second one I was like, this was a racist thing you said that made me uncomfortable.
They say you need to be writing them down and keeping track.
Well,
and that's what I suggest as well.
And yeah, I think even before the letters, even before I left, trying to raise these issues like within organizations.
Sure.
And I think that, came from a lot of what I saw and did in college and trying to sort of stand up for those things in real time. And learning too. There's a book that low-key I haven't finished, even though I've had it for like 10 years. But it's called The Revolution Will Not Be Funded. Mm-hmm. And it's about the nonprofit industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think
buying that. I've heard of from
I'm about to put that on my list.
It's enough people now that I feel like I should. Right?
Yeah, I gotta pick it up.
I've had to, I've had to
grab you a
pretend to
copy.
read it for a long time, and now I just feel like I should do it.
Same. But yeah, I think once I started working in the nonprofit space, I also became critical, not just of like leadership like within my organizations, but like seeing the system as a whole, seeing the ways in which it can and sometimes does uphold the inequities that we are trying to solve.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And that it's all intentional,
show.
like 501c3s were created, as a way to sort of monitor, social change work and grassroots. Grassroots work is really hard to fund, even from the foundation, if you are not in this formal structure. You know what I mean? And so people who are doing like really like in community work now have to enter this world, speak the language, write the funding proposals a certain way, get the tax, certification, like all of these things.
Sure.
That can, sometimes be a challenge.
Sometimes you just want to help people.
I just want to help people.
It's hard to help. It's hard to get help.
Legally helping, you need a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think about it all the time. Like if it's hard for us to do it, then it's a billion times harder to get it when you need it and get enough of it when you need it.
Right.
Right. We could dig this hole for a long time, but I think it's true, and I think it's something that needs to be talked about. And I know that you talk about it, and I know that you talk about it, and I think there's an interesting moment, which I hope we continue to capitalize on, where more people are saying, look, this is the work that we do. Cool. But I think more people are interrogating the process than at least I have heard previously.
Sure.
Right. And I'm certainly not, I haven't been around for that long, but in sort of the 10 years I've been digging around, there seems to be more open conversation about like, okay, we have to do what we got to do today.
Right.
But we are going to be a little more critical of what it looks like in the future. And I think that's important.
I always think about like the rise of GoFundMe and mutual aid. How people are like, I can make a donation. But Kisha need her groceries today.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, now it feels like people are trying to compete with, well, they can't compete. It's hard to compete with direct fund. Like, Kisha needed groceries, and I gave her $10 to her GoFundMe. Right. It is hard for a person to say, well, that wasn't the right way to do it. You didn't have to pay, the government didn't tax you that way. But it's like, I feel like I helped somebody. I think especially during COVID, that's when it was like huge. Like, mutual aid, like people decided that like, only person who's going to help us is us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's poor people sending the same $10 back and forth,
Right,
so the lights stay on, right? And you know what it meant to those people that they didn't have to go through 16 application programs.
Sure.
And
you got to get into a
that.
9-week program to get $100.
But I think
like,
about
you know.
that in the scope of like the nonprofit space,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and how
there's
we work
so
together.
much sludge in it, and I mean, I wonder what you guys think about this. It's one of those things where what I've found is you're almost disincentivized in a lot of places from doing things that work.
Yep.
In pursuit of doing things that tell a better story, if that makes any sense, right? Because we could have a pretty cogent conversation around poverty and the issues of poverty, and if you dig deep enough, you basically hit money.
Right.
Like
hit capitalism.
Like we could
Didn't they
give
do a study
folks
on giving people money? They gave people
There's a lot of them, sure.
like standardized income and like that changed the course of their
Yes.
lives. It helped, but not just their lives. The community did better because we didn't have to no one was coming into the hospital with no health care, right?
Sure.
Like,
Well, here's the thing. That's
losing money doing that version.
The problem is
Right.
that's a politically unpalatable thing, which is
yeah.
why this UBI thing is a
yeah.
because
Like
and then people, but then people talk, and
Yeah.
then the economists are all this and the third. But you look at almost every sort of well done UBI study over the past 5 years have yielded positive results. There was a big one here that the OpenAI guy just did. They did one particularly in Kenya where they were like and people got better roofs and did like a bunch of other stuff. I mean, they did. We have this whole welfare sort of queen philosophy that still pervades a lot of our giving culture, right? Where it's like, well, I give them money and they're just gonna, go buy a Rolex and buy Jordans. Like,
and it has to be what I think is right.
It has to be what I think is right.
I am going to give a little shout out to Black Mothers Blooming.
Absolutely, yeah.
Shout out, because I just saw that.
Yeah, it's
the application
great
is open, and I will say it is not a universal basic income program, but it is a reparative gift program, recognizing and understanding the historic and systemic barriers, and so it's focused on Black mothers or femme identifying like caregivers, and folks will a group of 50 will get $1,000 a month every month for 4 years. And I think that
feels transformative.
Talk a little bit more. Talk a little bit more about that, and because I know you guys are deeply involved. There's other, I don't know if they want to be named, but other local foundations involved, and this is, I mean, and it's people who we know, and it's people who are,
someone yesterday about who's involved.
Yeah,
and I was gonna say, but now that you didn't say it, want to be named, I just
I don't know, but I know they're all supportive. They're supportive of all of our work. But I mean, talk a little bit about that, because that again, and I've spoken with a lot of people who have been involved in the creation of it, including your colleagues and some other folks, and that was the conversation that was had. It was like, look, can we strip out all the nonsense and just say, at the end of the day, people need money, because we're giving money to all of the disparate things which are all important. We need childcare and healthcare and transportation, and extracurriculars and food and housing, and but all of that at the end of the day, you need money to do it. And so I think we often have a lot of the theory and not enough of the resource. We say, hey, come into this program and do blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But we're not giving you any of the stuff to do the thing. And so just talk a little bit about, I mean, I know you've been much more involved than we have. So, I mean, what was the growth of this thing like? I mean, was there resistance to it? How did it come to getting off the ground?
I will say I haven't been deeply part of this. I came on in kind of this final few months of the program finalizing.
So you got it across the finish line, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
she put it on her
back. She finished it.
Thank you to her.
This sounds great. I can't wait to tell everyone about it. But
it's like when you have a kid. That's what I did. I was like, we did it. My wife's like, what did you do? I was like, I was here.
I was around.
I made a lot of conscious decisions.
I brought the ice chips. Congratulations to us. Yeah.
The ice chips. I can't take credit, but we have a wonderful team, at CACF and our partners who've been working on this for, I believe, like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think from the point that I came in, one of the biggest things that even I'm breaking down in myself is that feeling of like, but shouldn't we know what they do with it? And not to control it.
No, I think a lot of people are like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for me, even like the instinct just came from like, this is such an amazing program, and I can't wait to tell the story about it.
Sure.
I can't wait to like be able to go back and show this as evidence that this works and things like that.
Sure.
And it's like really having to break that down and be like, why do we need evidence?
Yeah.
Evidence for who? Who are we proving it to, and for what? And what? Like, it's like we know that this is going to be transformative and helpful. There is no like say or accountability that these folks have to us as an institution to say what they did with it. Voluntarily, yes.
Sure.
You know, I think there'll be like maybe voluntary surveys or things like that go out, but there's absolutely no requirement to share at all where the money went. And I think that, that's been a journey for me. And I think for the whole team and everyone who's been working on this is like, even when you think that you like understand it and you get it and you've broken down like your assumptions and things like that, it's really pervasive. And I don't have much more to say, but I'm really excited, and please apply, folks, if you're hearing this. Program. And I think also too, you know, we're seeing this with our Solidarity Grant Program as well. Like, I'm excited to learn. I think that there's just going to be information that comes in about like how the program is run, and again, voluntary feedback from participants. And I think it's just going to, you know, get better and better as time goes on, and hopefully more folks will come on board and see that this is really impactful and that this is like, just going straight to where support is needed. There's
a question for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Is you who have done a lot of this work and continue to do it, you mentioned something that I think is interesting, and this theory of certainly not control and certainly not sort of prescription, but just about. I think an argument could be that at some level, running a nonprofit is running a business, right? And we have to think about it as such. And so the system's set up so that the business has to be solvent to continue to provide any sort of benefit to for the people that we profess to help.
Right.
We could talk about whether we're doing it at the right level or we're sort of meeting that stewardship responsibility, but. What would you say, both of you say, to the argument of, well, look, the reason why we want to have an idea of where it's going is to learn about its uses, and also because we have to report on it. At some point, if we want to do this again, we have to prove that it worked, right?
Yeah.
Now, qualitatively, we could say it's going to work because you look at all the data about economics and opportunity in education, like
absolutely.
It would be odd to most sober-minded folks if things got worse as people got more money.
Right.
And I don't know that many people would argue that.
Yeah.
But so the bigger question that I'm asking is, given the context of how nonprofits work, how funding works, how these mechanisms work, you could argue that the only way to continue to help is to prove that the help works.
Yeah.
So can we really select that out and still preserve the good work?
Right.
Again, given that that's how it's set up. You can't walk into a foundation meeting and be like, did this program work? And be like, I don't know.
Right.
What do you think?
I guess my first instinct on that, I think specifically for Black Mothers Blooming, like, there was a deep partnership here and with the donor as well. And so to my understanding, there isn't this dynamic where it's like we have to go back and prove to them that it works.
No, it came from them. I think that's a little bit of a different thing. That's someone with a resource saying, I want you guys to help me do this.
Yes.
You don't have to convince them that it works.
Yes.
So let's take the unicorns out of it.
Okay.
Right?
So then in that case, I'll say that, I guess, again, like really trying to break down things that are so entrenched. I think when we are doing like measurement, evaluation, and learning for the sake of proving that a program worked, it's still, in some sense, like the organization being accountable to its donors,
100%.
And I think there are ways to be like, did this work, where you are accountable to the people you're providing the service to. And those intersect, you get the feedback, or you do the survey, you do the focus group, and you just, you learn, you hear, you take it in.
Sure.
But I think, like, I don't know, the pendulum swung too far. I'm not sure quite what it is, but I think so much of that evidence building is around accountability to donors. And
yes.
Unfortunately,
sure.
We need the money to do the work. Yeah,
sure.
It kind of is what it is.
Sure,
and I think
sure.
trying to find that balance. But I think even just recognizing that you're like, who am I doing this for? And how much effort am I putting into accountability to a group that isn't actually, who I'm not even actually trying to support or help. And making sure that, maybe you can build in that accountability to your donors, but accountability to your constituents has to be like at the center and first. But it's hard. I worked in like 3 nonprofits. I know that I've worked in the development and the fundraising and all of these things, and they want the evidence. They want the storytelling. They want the numbers. They want how many people you've impacted and how many people received XYZ. And I think as funders, that's another thing, again, to break down within ourselves. Like, what does reporting, I think for a couple of our grant programs, there isn't any particular sort of like, oh, you have to send us this whole report about what you did with the money. For a solidarity program, it's like a conversation.
Right.
Truly, we're just like, okay, let's sit with you for 1 hour. Tell us how this went for you, you know? And for us, trying not to say you have to be accountable to us before you're accountable to the people that you're working with.
What do you think? Could you argue that those Venn diagrams cross in a serious way? Like if you give me money to provide some sort of pro-social service,
right?
Could you not argue that it could be a both and? That
I think it can.
That if it works for you, it works for whomever. Like
yes.
I feel like those incentives can align. I don't know that they always do.
Yeah.
Right? And I would say that. I don't think they always do.
I agree with you.
But I think they could.
Yes.
And I wonder how you guys feel about that, given, sort of how we think about, and what I sort of am hearing what you're saying is like, who gets to decide what success is, and then who gets to decide like how quick that progress should be.
Absolutely.
Is it the people who are experiencing the work,
right,
or is it the people who are giving the money? And it seems
right,
like sometimes these organizations are caught in the middle of kind of being beholden to two masters, right? Because we want to do as much as we can within reason and honestly to
right,
get the resource.
Right.
But sometimes there is sort of a clear delineation where like, I can't do that.
Right.
So like, how far do you stretch to say, I need to get this money, but like, and with the understanding that things happen, like people's lives are dynamic, and particularly people, who are resource strapped have a much different experience. So, I mean, I don't know, you see this too. Like, how do you, how do you feel about that?
I think it is a Venn diagram, but I think that it needs to be client centered, and I think we need to get as close to the center of trying to please both people. But I think at the end of the day, your clients, if they're doing well, and we're sending out these surveys and it seems like they're doing well, but I also think that when you change up how you do things, you're going to lose donors. You're going, like, for example, if you start doing racial equity based work, people are going to be like, I've been giving for 30 years. I don't like that. Y'all said this is what y'all said y'all were. And now you're doing this new thing. But my thing is, all money ain't good money. And if the people don't, I think if you're doing the right thing and your clients are having successful outcomes and whatever success means, right? The people who leave, I think that those gaps and voids will be filled by people who understand the work, and that you're going to have to understand that you're going to lose people that you had, but that other people will pick up where they left off and with the work that you're doing. You have to believe that if you want to keep the lights on.
Yeah,
right.
That's
and
right.
So for me, I think it's like, you're going to lose people that don't like your new direction. They don't like that you decided to focus on clients and not having to bang down doors and give us receipts for every bottle you paid for, every tire she had to change to get to work, to get the child care. Like, whatever it was meant for her, it was meant for her. And so I think people who understand that will come. You'll have to, and so people who don't understand that will leave. And you're going to have to find the money in the middle. But I'd rather go out and have to find new people who understand that than, play to both masters. As
pander.
To get on bended knee and say, please, we're doing right. Just believe us.
Yeah.
And I add that I think you're right. I agree, too, that it's a Venn diagram. I think where things might start to break down is kind of what we're saying, like the mission creep, or like following funding or not moving in the direction you want to because you don't think that your funding will follow you.
Yeah.
But I think also sometimes it's like, if you're gathering feedback just for the sake of reporting, just for the sake of sort of being extractive and giving back to donors, it's like you need to be honest with your constituents about what's actually on the table with this feedback. What can we act on? What resources do we even have? Like, if people keep being like, I'm giving you feedback, I'm telling you all these things, but nothing's changing in the way that your program is functioning, in the way it's not working. We've all told you that this isn't good, or like this actually isn't helpful, but like you're still doing it because the funders think, okay, that's good. 20 people did this program and that's good enough for us. I feel like it's finding that balance. And I think a lot of people do find the balance and try to talk to funders. And also I would say there's a movement of funders. There's Justice Funders Network and others that are really trying to, again, like build these like actual relationship-based funding, grantee opportunities, like trying to make reporting not a hassle and not something, they could be out doing programming. Instead, they're spending like 20 hours writing this report for you and finding all the receipts and things like that, and there's a lot more to the Justice Funders Network, but I think that, it's a balance. It's moving.
As someone who works for a nonprofit, as someone who works with nonprofits, and I mean, do you think some of this, how much of the blame should we shoulder for this, given that, you read, I think all three of us read a variety of nonprofit reports, our own and our colleagues, and, I mean, all of whom we like and who are good people doing good work, but do you think that we sometimes over-index on creating goals that are unattainable for the sake, again, of acquiring resources, right? Because then we have this kind of like quiet competition where, they said they were going to do X.
Right.
And they're going to get that money from whomever. That's money I want and need. So I have to do Y, right? I have to create this narrative where I'm going to say I'm going to build a community center.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. I mean, can I do that?
Right.
I don't know. Right? Do I have a plan to do that? I don't know, but it sounds good and people love that.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, do you think that, how much of the burden should we bear? And do we have to be honest with ourselves and sort of our own nonprofit community to be like, look, we gotta stop saying crazy things in public for the sake of getting money and then not being able to do the thing. And then, and to me, look, and then low-key being like, life's hard and I don't know what to do with these poor people. Because that's what it reads like to me. It's like, I had this great goal, I had this great system. It didn't work because, like, it's crazy out there.
Right.
You were never. You were never going to do it. Never.
Yeah.
You know, and so how do we work in that world where then again, you could argue that, like, that resource is wasted's a hard word, but it could have gone somewhere else that would have been more efficiently used, right? And it seems like we have this kind of self-reinforcing.
Yeah.
When you get to a certain level of operation, you can almost say whatever you want. Yeah. Because people are like, oh, cool, like, great. I'm in. This sounds great. You know, how do we do that? How do we internalize that as organizations? And how do we sort of check ourselves and each other to be like, yo, look, listen. Yeah. Like, let's be realistic. Right. But we also, to your point, the funders have to be okay with it being realistic. Absolutely. It will take 5 years and this much money to do this thing that's very hard. And it won't be 1 million people. It will be 30.
20. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I would say, I think most of it needs to be on funders. Like, if you are holding the power, that's where I think the change really needs to occur. And, nonprofits are just doing their best, for the most part, to play the game. But I think that's also where capacity building comes in. And it's like, not capacity building for the sake of, like, every nonprofit needs to be able to, like, grow infinitely and do everything, but capacity building to understand, like, what is my role in this ecosystem, in this network. And it comes with community building and peer learning and, like, relationship building and, like, the beef you have with somebody, like, working through that so you can work together because y'all are doing the same thing. That's right. Like, you're working in the same space. And it could be really powerful if you collaborated or had conversations where you understand the different roles that you play. So I think funders have a huge role in, like, breaking down the power dynamic within our own organizations and then also providing the resources for capacity building and prioritizing it, because nonprofits are like, funders want to see results and programs. So if I get money, I'm not going to do it so that I can, like, build out a strategy or a plan that's realistic and figure out how to make these budgets and, like, do something that actually makes sense. I just got to go and, like, I just have to go and execute, And so hopefully, with my role and it's a nascent but sort of growing role, I think, across organizations, like network building, capacity building, community building, I think folks are recognizing that is equally important in getting the work done and facilitating it and helping organizations prioritize that.
Was that a wink?
Yeah, good wink.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
How to do it.
All right, go
ahead.
Can
I do a quick plug?
Bring us up. You can plug whatever you like.
Okay, I'm going to do a plug. So, as we said in the beginning, I'm the Senior Capacity Building Manager at CACF. And for folks who are listening, I just want to share that we have a lot of capacity building resources at CACF. So please, reach out to me. I'm sure there's, like, going to be contact info somewhere. But Catchafire is a pro bono sort of, like, skilled volunteer matching program. It's all virtual, but folks can get access to support on almost every nonprofit function, fundraising and finance and budgeting and event planning and marketing materials and graphic design and all of these things. And it is totally free to organizations. We are, in a very exciting way, launching it to almost 400 new organizations this year. Wow. But if you are not on that list already, reach out. And we're really just trying to get it in as many hands as possible. And that's sort of our biggest capacity building campaign, but more to come, hopefully next year, and some more programs and technical assistance. I'm also working with a group of other capacity builders with CNE, UVA Equity Center, and others to build out the insights and impact group. And so if folks are like really early stage social entrepreneurs, can be business or nonprofit, maybe, you're one person running an organization, you are, maybe you have an idea that you're still trying to build out, also contact us about that. We're just, bringing folks together for that peer learning, for that community building, and trying to figure out what kinds of technical assistance folks need at that stage. Because we recognize that some of the resources we have to help folks might be a little bit out of reach, and exploring options like fiscal sponsorship if, you don't want to take on all of the administrative work and things like that. So we're here to help. Reach out.
It's a great plug. Got anything else?
Nope.
Well, thank you, Kisha, for hanging out with us.
Of course.
If you guys have ideas for the show or want to get in touch with us, check us out on social media, United Way Seville, on all platforms, at City of Promise, or drop us a note, envision@unitedwayseville.org. How do folks get in touch with you and CSCF?
Email. Should I say it?
Sure, if you want, if you want to.
Okay, KBWENGE@cacfonline.org.
And the site for CSCF is cacfonline.org?
cacfonline.org, yeah.
Is there anything coming up people should know about, grant cycles or funding opportunities or any other stuff that people should mark?
I really should have that on top of my mind.
They'll see it on the website.
You'll see it on the website. I mean, I will say one thing. Our Solidarity Grant Program, which is focusing on supporting like movement building and systems change by and for Black and Alana communities, it's on a current pause. It's going to relaunch early next year, so keep an eye out for that. And we have our Bama Works program. It's 2 cycles per year. We're in the middle of the fall cycle, but in the spring we'll have another application cycle open for folks. And really excited to be doing the work, building solidarity within our community, and also understanding solidarity across global struggles and the way that it affects us.
So check out cacfonline.org for updates on that. We get support on the show from the United Way. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. Subscribe to your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. And again, one of the best ways, as we talked about, to help us keep doing the work that we do in this show is consider making a contribution to us at City of Promise, to United Way, Greater Charlottesville, or any of our other local, wonderful, hardworking nonprofits.
Woohoo!
For Kisha and Marki, this is Price.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye. Thanks, y'all.